He forgot the blindfold, folks. He forgot the blindfold. Jakob Ingebrigtsen might be able to beat Josh Kerr with a blindfold, but he can't beat him when he doesn't have one. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the 2024 Pre-Classic Reaction Show. This is Let'sRun.com co-founder Robert Johnson. What a meet. I hope you were entertained. The Bowerman mile lived up to the hype. Josh Kerr beats Jakob Ingebrigtsen in a 3:45 race. He flipped the script. He took the lead with 600 meters to go. Ingebrigtsen was chasing him down. Could he do it? Could Ingebrigtsen actually hunt? Could the Olympic champion hunt down the world champion? Not quite. But what a race. What drama. Earlier in the day, BS's Trish Chebet, 28:54 world record. Daniel Mataiko, who is he? He wins the Kenya men's trials. Keely Hutchinson, 155, 78, 800, which was a bizarre race. Peruth Chemichai, 855 in the steeple. Dereba Iwatelji, 353. Jessica Hole, 355. She skipped the 356s altogether. Ellie St. Pierre, 356 PB. Sha'Carri's back, baby. 1083. What's wrong with Elaine Thompson-Hara? Joe Kovacs, 2313. Grant Holloway. All of that and more. I will be joined by Ace staff writer Jonathan Galt. He is in Eugene right now, but he just called me right before I went on here, and he said, look, he's waiting in the mix zone. He's like, everyone's come through except for Josh Kerr, except for Jakob Ingebrigtsen. I'm like, dude, just wait. I'll do the show solo. We got to hear what they have to say about this race. Wow. Amazing, amazing, amazing day of track and field. I'm glad for all of you that are joining us on the show, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Andrew wants me to chug a beer in 345 on the screen. I can't do that, but I will have a sip. I'm kind of hot in here. I'm sweating profusely. I think I was because I was so excited. But let's talk about the mile. It was kind of weird. My son had a play date over here at the house, and he left at 5. I was trying to catch up on the meet so I would be, on top of it for the show. And I didn't realize for some reason I guess I had paused it when I got to the bathroom or something. I was like 5 minutes behind, and it was 3:56. It was 4:56 p.m. Excuse me, 5:56 p.m. And I knew that NBC went off the air at 6. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to miss the Bowerman mile. And then I'm like, wait, I'm behind. So I immediately was afraid someone was going to call me with results. I turned off my phone and whatever and just sat down. And I just love the race. It's a lot of guys in the field. It's kind of hard to start in a mile because you're starting on a turn. Kara Goucher made the comment that Ingebrigtsen was out in lane 3 or 4. He was, but he did what he always does, which is kind of relax for the first 200 and then move up. But by 300, he was in a great spot. And, he let the Kenyan, I think it was Abel Kipsang, just do all the leading. And he was like, very smart. I'm like, okay, this is not the Ingebrigtsen of 2023. This is the Ingebrigtsen of 2024. He's going to let somebody else lead and see what happens. But Kipsang actually ended up tiring and ended up next to last. And when the pace around, 900 meters in started to lag a little bit, it was Kerr. Kerr had been middle pack at the beginning of the race. He wanted that British record, and he just went for it. And when he went up there, I was like, man, that guy's a baller. And it was really exciting because then Ingebrigtsen could sit on him. And I thought, everyone talks about his speed not being there. I bet if he sat on a lot of these guys, he would blow their doors off because he's a lot fitter. We're going to find out right here. And Kerr did not really drop him heading into the final 200. I'm like, oh my God, I think Ingebrigtsen can do this. But it's kind of it was actually what Ingebrigtsen normally does. Nobody can quite just get ahead of him. And then, in the last 50 meters, you could kind of tell, Ingebrigtsen had kind of resigned himself to second. But what a race. 3:45.34 British record for Josh Kerr. 3:45.60 for Jakob Ingebrigtsen. Yared Nuguse, the American, stayed close. Even with 200 to go, I'm like, oh, could he possibly kick by on him? 3:46.22. Neil Gorley actually rallied to beat Jake Wightman, 347.74. Jake Wightman, 347.83. But he was clear. The big four, the guys that we think, the four guys that really have a shot at the gold medal, I think, this summer, Josh Kerr, Jakob Ingebrigtsen, Yared Nuguse, and Jake Wightman, they were 1, 2, 3, 4 heading into the bell. They were really the only guys sort of in the hunt there. Looking behind it, Chariot 348. I mean, I don't even know. I've seen some of these results. Hawker 348. Beamish, I guess his big kick was there, 349.09. I bet he had the fastest last lap of anybody in the thing. But, dude, I remember at one point, like 800 in, I'm like, he's dead last. There's no way this guy's going to be, kicking for the win in this race. I'm trying to see if I can find Beamish's last splits. Is anyone besides me, upset with, the pre-classic, timing site today? Yeah, there's no race recaps. Normally it shows you the splits. The timing site had, half the finishers for a lot of the races for several minutes. And at a regular college meet, I can get every split right away. Here we are, 45 minutes after the race ends, and I still can't figure out who ran what on what lap. But, whoa, that was the Bowerman mile. Seth Martin said it best. Josh just beat Jakob on his game. Wow. But I'm going to go with enticing May here. First race for Jakob in a while, and he did better than expected. Paris is going to be awesome. It is going to be awesome. I mean, I was getting texts from friends like Joe Walsh, I love you, buddy. Oregonian, he's like, this Kerr rivalry, Jakob rivalry is great for track and field. And it is. And when this race ended, I was like, if I'm Kerr, I'm feeling quite good in this race. I just got the British record. I just took it to the Olympic champion. I showed no fear. He's a little cautious, I guess, at the start, but ran a really smart race and just pushed it from 600 meters out and did what Kerr normally does. I mean, did what Ingebrigtsen does. But if I'm Josh Kerr, and we'll see what he said to Jonathan Gold after this race. I mean, if I'm Jakob Ingebrigtsen, I'm extremely happy with this race. You missed several months of training. There's been a lot of, messiness in his personal life with his father and everything. His wife's expecting a baby. And, dude, I thought he ran a really smart race. I think it's smart for him to think, maybe I'll sit on these guys. Let somebody else lead it, and then I'll try to just be stronger than in the last 200. He runs 345. He told us yesterday he thinks he's going to be getting better as the season goes on. So I'm not disappointed in that. Nuguse, I mean, yeah, he ran 343 in this race last year, but it's May. This is not August. He stayed near those guys. He beat everybody else. I think he's got to be happy with that too. So Wightman gets the standard out of the way. Neil Gorley's happy. So I literally, if I'm in the top 5 of this race, I'm fine. If I'm Gorley, I'm thinking, okay, this is setting me up for making the Olympic team. Wightman, standard out of the way. And if I'm Wightman, I'm thrilled because it's not going to be rabbited in the Olympics. And it's like, okay, who's going to push the first 800? Maybe some Kenyan does it ill-advised. I shouldn't say dumb Kenyan, but maybe somebody like Abel Kipsang who ends up 12th out of 13th in this race, or 12th out of 14th in this race will push it. But if it's slow, Wightman's a factor for the gold. Anyways, behind them, Hawker wasn't like it was a bad race. 348.5, his PB's 348.0, but I haven't seen a step to the next tier. He's like the best guy. Well, I guess Raynald Chariot is, but he's sixth or seventh in the worlds. He's 7th here or 8th here. So, that's just the way it is. Beamish, it's a PB, but dude, I guess just go run the steeple or hope this race is tactical. Ollie Hoare, I think he's got to be. He's the one guy I think that's got to be disappointed in this race. He's got a 347 PB. He won last week. He beat Chariot, and he's only 9th. Mario Ganashino run him. Hey guys, I told both of you, leave the OSCL coach. You're never going to beat Nuguse if you stay in the OEC. The teenager Cam Myers, I forgot how old he is, actually ran a PB 350.15. So those guys, for the most part, whatever, were fine. Kipsang, man, what happened there at the end? But the biggest disappointments were next to last and last. Lamet Sha'Carri, the Ethiopian record holder of 1500, the world record holder in the steeplechase. We got the text. We announced it on yesterday's show. He's missed some time. He was sick, but he wants to really work on his speed so he can beat El Bakali. But he hasn't been running great, recently. So I don't think the good news is El Bakali has missed a month and is not where he normally is. But Gurma doesn't look where he was to be yesterday. So I'm giving the edge to El Bakali right now. But Cooper Tier, dude, everyone was so pumped about the 1254, and I guess maybe it's a lot to expect a lifetime PB in the 5,000 last week and then followed up with a 1,500 PB this week. Although, Ingebrigtsen sick can get silver in Worlds and then win the 5,000. So with a week's rest, 2 races shouldn't be too much. But this was a disaster for Cooper Tier. Not good. So, and I forgot to mention Hobbs Kessler. There was a mean comment here at the top by Brian Way on YouTube. Kessler pulls a Mary Decky. You can't win, so you step onto the infield. A disappointing DNF is preferable to humiliating loss. That's too harsh, man. But I thought the same thing. I don't know when was it, on the second lap? He's running, he gets cut from behind, and he just stops off the infield and quits. Dude, we got plenty of time. You're not going to win the race. You're not going to run what you want to do, but stay in there. Now, I'd like to see a replay, but I'm not going to lie. My instant reaction when I was watching this live was not that far from Brian Way. Now, it's too mean. I don't think he was doing it to avoid a loss. I think Hobbs Kessler is going to be very upset about this race. He wants to see where he stands up against these guys. But, hey, it's better to do that than do what Cooper Tier did. So, someone's saying Tier got tripped. Okay, so we're going to make excuses for Tier. So, someone's saying Cam Myers is going to be the future. The guy that I want to know, and he's a Nike athlete, so I'm worried about this. He grew up listening to the Let'sRun.com podcast, and we've only been doing it for 4 or 5 years regularly. But he used to be taking the family vacation, listening in the back of the station wagon. He's still only 19, Niels Laros. And he was not in this race. He's a Nike athlete. I feel like he's got to be sick. He hasn't raced since injured. He hasn't raced since February. He ran 144, 331, 449 for 2K, 1323 last year. I mean, this guy was running for gold last year in the Olympics. In the world. It was crazy how aggressive he was. Not in this race. So if you're not running by now, particularly if you're a Nike athlete, I think it's time to panic. So if anyone knows from overseas what's going on, let us know. Niels, if you are listening, keep your chin up. It sucks to be hurt, but I think it's good for you in the long term to have it happen early in your career. Then you won't take everything for granted. Whatever. So, all right. I probably should not have led with the Bowerman Mile because we're going to be talking about that whenever John Galt gets on. But how could I not lead with the Bowerman Mile? Narv Nordas is overseas. He doesn't need to be running this. He's not a Nike athlete. Oh, wow. Anthony Joshua says, Laros is out for the season. Damn it. Injured on training camp in South Africa. Niels, you should come to the Olympics so you can hang out in our flat. We'll have you on the podcast. Linda Wallace apparently has watched the recap. Hobbs Kessler tangled with Hawker. He was trying to stay on the rail, but I think he stepped on Hawker, and both lost their balance and failed themselves on the infield. So, yeah, I think Mo should be worried. Arian Knighton should be worried. All of that. All right, let's talk about the other action. I realized the women's 10,000 was going on in the middle of the day. My son's play date was going on. I try to find live results. It's kind of hard to find on the Pre-Classic website, on flash results or something. I see 14:31 for the split. I'm like, I better figure out how to log into Runner Space. That's the problem. It's just so complicated, all these damn streaming sites. There should just be one universal login, and they all know, and they share it. So, Let's Run can log into cable TV, Runner Space, FlowTrack, Google, YouTube, same login. But I turned it on, and Goodolph's the guy was doing all the work. And I just thought, if this woman sets the world record, this is pretty amazing. She almost set the world record in the 1500 earlier this summer. She set the 5,000 record on this track earlier in her last race, last fall, 14:01 or 14 minutes, whatever it is. and she's on pace here. Someone's going to break it. And I was like, wow, one of these women is likely to break the world record and lose. How does that suck? And then Chibet was like, I mean, Sege was like really grimacing, like, it looks like I am now, kind of hot. And I was like, oh shit, what's going on? She started to fall off the pace lights about 3 lights ago. And Chibet, 2-time world cross country champion, just said, see you later. Took off 28:54. So this was a magnificent run. Chibet, more known for her cross country prowess, but dude, she's going to be right there for the gold medal on the track now. And what I loved about this race, Sege holds on for second, 29:05, third to fastest time all time. This race reminded, what I loved most was Sege hugged Chibet and seemed genuinely happy for her. And her post-race comments to Jonathan Gault were like, she ran a great race, like, basically. I mean, like, it's just the classiness, the sportsmanship, like, amazing. And Chibet made this race. This race reminded me of Galen Rupp's pre-classic win in the 10,000 when Lowy Lalang rabbited Rupp for like 8,000 or 8,800 or something like that. I mean, you're not going to have a better scenario than this. You've got one of the top 5 runners of all time in terms of, combos of 1,500, 10,000. You've got the world record holder. I mean, can you have a better scenario? You have the world record holder at 5,000, basically rabbiting this race at 29 flat for 8,800 meters. Like, you're never going to get a better scenario than that. Little wind. It wasn't a night. It was in the sun, but it wasn't hot. And she produced. So, just spectacular. Anyways, I guess NRT TV has already got some Josh Kerr quotes. NRK TV. Are you surprised by Josh Kerr? Jakob supposedly said, absolutely not. I hoped it would happen. Since he is so cocky, it was expected. And it's great. He didn't chicken out when it mattered. Wow. God, I love that quote. Duck, Kerr no longer. He showed up and he kicked Ingebrigtsen's butt. So I just think this is great. So anyways, Chibet for the win in the 10,000. The second spot for the Kenyan team, guaranteed second spot. Where is this here? It's doing 10,000 women. Goes to Lilian Rangarak. According to this, she had a 34:30 track PB, and she's run 29:26. She beats out Margaret Kimboy by 1 second. I assume like those are the top 3, and then 4th place was like 40 seconds behind. So I'm assuming that's going to be your team, even though they don't have to take third. But you never know what Athletics Kenya is going to do. So that was that. In the men's 10,000, gotta admit I didn't watch this one. Daniel Matejko, 26:50.81 over Nicholas Kipcareer, 26:50.94. Bernard Kibet, 26:51. The U.S.-based Kenyan dogs from I think from Under Armour, Sky or Hoka, Edwin Krugat, 26:51. So the guy's not in the top 2. Stanley Mimburo, who's gotten silver. Daniel Mbenyo, who's gotten silver. They only run 27:07, 27:24. I don't see how you put either one of those guys on the team. They're 17 seconds back. We're only, 2 months out from the Olympics? I'm taking definitely the top. Well, they have to take the top 2, and I'm probably just taking the top 3. Now, what I know about the guy that won is, well, I do have some stats up here on him, but I erased them because I got rid of Niels Laros. This is the guy that had the big cojones to go with Calvin Kipton in Chicago last year. So I remember talking to John, it's like, this guy's a talent. 25 years of age, done really nothing on the track, 13:13, 27:03. But he's been quite good at the half marathon. He'd run 58:44, 48:5 earlier this year, 1 RAK. He's run a bunch of 58:20s. But when you've got the cojones to go with Calvin Kipton in the marathon, you've got a sick talent. So, good for him to get the win. I think the silver medalist, right, is that the guy that got the medal at World Cross, the youngster? Someone help me out here. See, this is where I need John to make me look smart. Yes, Robert. Oh, Nicholas Kipcareer, that's the good track guy. It's not the cross-country guy that got third. So, apologize. This is why you need two people on a host so we can look up the stats. I'm having trouble looking at the chats, looking at the stats, and whatever. So, that's the men's 10,000. I'm sure John will have a little bit more info because he's working on those recaps. But for the actual main portion of the pre-classic meet, I thought Christian Coleman looked good in the men's 100. He got to his good start and just never gave it up. So, Coleman wins 995, Omanyala 998. Nobody else breaks 10. There was only one guy in the field that had broken 10 this year, and two guys do it here. So, it wasn't an amazing day for sprinting. It's not that warm. But good race for Coleman because nobody else really is doing much of anything really in the 100, in the 200, in the 100 this year. It's been very sort of unimpressive, in that race. Women's 5,000, Sige Gebrselassie wins it in 14:18. What did I think of this race? Nothing to write home about. Like, the big guns weren't in it. You're going to have a medal going to Sige. Well, I guess Hassan was in there. I'm still assuming she's going to win a medal. But I guess, look, if Hassan doesn't get back to her fitness, I think she's got 2 months. I think she'll be fine. But the big wild card is Faith Kipyegon. Where is she? If she's not, I'm assuming the medals are going to go to Sige, Kipyegon, and then some other side. And someone like this who runs 14:18 has got no chance. But, good win for her. She's, undefeated on the year, doing well. Wins 1,500. I thought that you see the gap. I don't trust the Ethiopian women in the tactical races. I don't trust them at Worlds. I don't trust them to pick the right team. I think they race too much. I think they're going to have a trials though, so maybe that'll, they'll have people in form. But you see the gap. I mean, in talent level. Dariba Watelji, it looked like she was going to be the heir apparent to Faith Kipyegon last year when she got the silver at Worlds, beat her in the road mile. She runs 3:53.75. She was aggressive from the front on the pacers, on the pace lights. And there was that chase pack with St. Pierre in it, and then Jessica Hull. And I thought, they might kick her down, but they didn't. They did run well. I mean, Jessica Hull skipped the 356s entirely. She had a 357 PB. It's now 355.97. Australian Oceania record. Congrats. St. Pierre, good race. Given where she's been running indoors, I can't honestly expect more, but she ran a 2-second PB, 358.03 to 356 flat. She's going to be in the hunt if it's tactical. Lori Moore, 356. Nikki Hiltz and Emily Mackay, 359. The one that needs to be worried, hey, and this wasn't the only person, but Elise Cranny, she's left Jerry now. She's run 4:03. So last year she was crushing everybody in the U.S. This year she's got some work to do. Wow. I wonder what Jakob and these guys are telling Jonathan Gault. I mean, hopefully he's getting some good exclusives. But we did fly him out there to, get the interviews, obviously. So, yep. What tells you looks so comfortable, says all in the game. Enticing, man. I really thought St. Pierre would be sprinting with Otelji. I mean, on the Let's Run poll on the homepage, I think more people picked St. Pierre to win. And I was just like, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's fair to Witelji. Witelji's, won in LA last week, wins here. This is a woman that, if she gets it right, should not be losing to Cranny. But, I guess with Cranny, she must have been injured. 2:02 in April 2nd. She ran, 2:02.9 and 4:09 April 13th. So this is a lot better than that. But she's only got a month to go. So, last year she was just, 14:52 at USA's, wins that, won the 10,000. But, this is, it's interesting. John and I got to have this argument. Like, people blame the coach when they do bad. They should leave the coach. But then they leave and don't do well. Should they go back to the coach? Like, I don't know. That's why I was worried about Ingebrigtsen. If he doesn't have to have a coach, why would we, expect him to be doing well? Should St. Pierre be focusing on the 5K now? No, absolutely not. No. I think she should be focusing on the 1500. Her best event's the 3000, to be honest. But 1434, like, Ingebrigtsen is unbeatable in the 5000 because he can run 1250 and they can't drop him. But St. Pierre has not shown that she can run 14 under, basically, they run 1418. Most of these girls, top girls, can all run under 1420. A lot of them can run under 1410. So if you want to have a chance in the tactical race, you need to have, 1415 fitness. So anyways, that's the women's Oh, well, I guess I should talk about some of these other. It was women's 5,000. I forgot to mention other Americans. Winnie Colati did pick up the standard 14:35, big PB for her. Her PB was 14:53. Hassan ran 14:34, but it was Ethiopians 1 through 6. Emily Enfield. See, this was the results that bothered me because it was like 20 minutes after the race. I looked to see what Emily Enfield did. They did not have their results. They do have them now. She only runs 15:12. And Jocelyn Bray, the Venezuelan woman who ran 14:36 just a few weeks ago, only runs 15:13. So, kind of surprising there. But that's the women's 15, women's 5. Women's steeple, I didn't see this, but I had a big reaction to it. Perth Chimichai 8:55:09. And this to me is like, okay, people are like, how could this woman win the world title? And she told us she had an Achilles injury, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, she's obviously a massive talent. And then we get it here. Like, she's never been healthy. She did win the Olympics. But this, to me, like, is a big validation of her Olympic win. It's like, this girl's a massive, massive talent. And I think if you do something really, out of nowhere win the Olympics, people are like, shady. It's like, shady, right? People think drugs. But her coming back here, I'm like, no. I'd heard her story about the battling the injury. She's never been consistent. And this is just a huge result for her. Her PB was 9:01. She took 6 seconds off her PB. Beats Beatrice Chipkowicz, the world record holder, 8:55 to 8:56. And then there's a huge gap to Faith Cheritich and 9:04, 9:07. But behind them, we're like, all right, Olympic trials preview. Coburn's out. Frericks is out. Who's going to take the spot? Val Constein. It was a shock when she made the Olympics 3 years ago. It's not going to be a shock this year. 9:14. That's a 4-second PB. She was injured last year, kind of like Coburn in Doha. Early season Diamond League. Out for the season. Comes back better than ever. Courtney Wayment. Good for her. 9:14. She only ran 9:30 coming in. Big race. Gab Jennings should run 9:19. She runs 9:18. Nothing amazing. Kaylee Mitchell runs a PB 9:21. But I was stunned by this result. Chrissy Gear, U.S. champion from last year, had run 9:12 last year. This was her steeple debut for the year, and she only runs, 9:24? I was stunned because she had just run I didn't see this race, but did she fall or something? Because she had just run, I think, 4:03, 1,500-meter PB, like last week, right? Let's find her results here. So, extremely disappointing. You see Nora Gerudo without the special sauce, 9:22. What a joke. What a joke. Hope I don't get sued in Kazakhstan court. Okay, Chrissy Gear, here we go. 2 weeks ago it was in LA, 4:03.
Joe, I'm here.
Very good, John. I've been recapping women's steeplechases for everybody. Not sure what events I've missed. I didn't get to the women's 800. So we'll do women's 800 later. Were there any men's distance events except for just the 1500?
Well, there was a pretty good mile. Men's distance races. No, that was it, right? It was the 10K and the Bowerman mile, yeah?
Yeah. I spent like 30 minutes talking about Bowerman mile. Probably shouldn't have because you're going to talk about it. You look good, John. You should almost wear a tie. You look like old school. But, okay, yeah. Let's ignore the Bowerman mile right now.
Okay, hard to do because I just spoke to Jakob and Kerr for about 10 minutes each, but that's fine. Let's go ahead. I'm impressed that you've been doing it for this long solo, Robert. Honestly, it's a work of – you should be praised for that. But, yeah, what do you want to talk about? Let's go.
And should we ignore the women's 10,000 world record? Other than that,
No.
like the main portion of the meet, what were your biggest highlights?
Biggest highlights, the men's Bowerman mile lived up to the hype. I didn't think Kerr would take it with 600 to go. He just threw down. That was impressive as hell. And Jakob was pretty optimistic, actually. He thought that in terms of the training he'd missed, where he's at right now, he feels pretty good. But that was proof Kerr has gone up a level. And I think that might not be the best of Josh Kerr yet, because he's like, look, I can get better between now and the Olympics. So that was awesome. That was a statement win from Kerr. Keely Hodgkinson, I thought, ran a brilliant race, really smart, hanging back and running down Marat. So that was a good result for her. Steeple, I mean, I guess we kind of got a preview of what the Olympic trials are going to look like in the women's steeple. And then Sha'Carri. I think the race was huge for Sha'Carri because she had run 2 pretty poor races in China and not particularly fast in either of them. She shows up and runs, what was it, 10.8, and looked like the class of that field. That was very impressive because it wasn't really a fast day for sprinting anyway. You know, it was like in the low 60s, not that warm. So I think Sha'Carri is a huge winner from the day's action. And it looks like Robert has gone off to wet his whistle. So I'm going to have to take this thing solo just like he did. I mean, he hasn't talked about the world record yet in the 10,000 meters. I'm kind of stunned by that. Not that it was unexpected. I thought it would go down. And about halfway through, I did think it was going to be Beatrice Chebet taking the victory. But yeah, we've got the first ever sub 29 on the track. And Robert's trying to act like it's no big deal. I don't know about that. So, Ellie, the other thing, I guess women's 1500, my takeaway from that is, it's good and bad for Ellie St. Pierre. Like she ran a 2-second PB, 356 flat. Like that's a fantastic race. The problem for her is she only got third, and the best 1500 meter runner in the world was not in this race. So, she feels like she can get into that. She's in the medal conversation, absolutely. But getting beat while running that fast, it's got to be equal parts like, hey, joy. She was very happy, but I think maybe in the back of her mind, she might be thinking, okay, I ran 356, but it's still not good enough. But I think she's got levels to go up as well. She thinks she can be in low 350s shape by the Olympics in August. Then, looking at some of the other storylines, I mean, Kenny Bednarek won the 200, which I think is what I expected, given the form he had been in. He won pretty convincingly, 1989. No one else broke 20 seconds. Courtney Lindsay, I don't know if you would say he cooled off all that much from earlier in the season, because I don't think these were great sprinting conditions. You had a healthy wind, but it wasn't that warm. But maybe he's not like, I think he's probably he's back from Lyles. I think right now it's Lyles, Bednarek, and then there's a bit of a gap, and you've got Courtney Lindsay and maybe an NCAA kid or something. And I don't think Arian Knighton, because he hasn't been racing at all and he withdrew from this one. All right, Robert, have you refreshed your beer? What were you out doing there, and what event do you want to talk about? Robert Johnson, can you hear me at all? I am trying to have a conversation. Robert, can you hear us? We're trying to do a podcast. Are you there? All right, I guess I'm going to have to keep going a little bit more solo. I mean, I think it was interesting to see the steeplechase. Peru's Chementai is back. The Olympic champion, like 8:55. That was a huge win for her, taking down Chepkoech, who's been in great form. So that was interesting. And then also just how awful Winfried Yavi was, the world champion from last year. Like 30 seconds off her PB. Like, what was up with her? Nora Gerudo, I believe she's coming back from a pregnancy as well as her provisional suspension, but she didn't show much a couple weeks ago and showed very little here as well today. So it looks like we've lost Robert here. Not sure when he's going to be back. I'll start going into some of the takeaways, some of the things I learned. Like I talked about Jakob a little bit in the Bowerman Mile. and he was pretty pleased, honestly, and he missed training. He thinks he's going to be continuing to get better, and that's not always the case with him. I think he said in previous years, you can kind of open up and he'll be in that fitness pretty much the whole way through. And if you look at his 2022 season in particular, he was running pretty similar times, the whole season through, and he was very consistent, beating everyone. But I think he's going for a different approach this year because of that missed training time. He's going to be trying to get better every meet. He's looks like his training's been going well recently. He is healthy, and that was his takeaway. He's like, look, if I can come in and run, what was it, 346? Did he even run 345? He was not that far behind Kerr. Yeah, 345 for Jakob. Having missed all that training, he was pretty pleased with that. Robert, can you hear me now? Are we ready to go?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, I'm echoing. You're going to have to turn off the background noise or echo cancellation.
Okay, there we go.
All right.
Sorry. I made the
What would
mistake of
you
answering.
like to talk about, Robert? What event would you like to talk about?
Well, I don't know what you just said in terms of your highlights. But what did they say afterwards? I mean, the mile was so amazing. Like it was exactly it was actually faster than what we thought. You and I predicted yesterday. We thought they'd run basically between 3:45.5 and like 3:46, and they ran a little bit faster. But
I mean, I almost nailed it perfectly. I said Josh Kerr would run 3:46 low and set the British record and win the race, and he ran 3:45 low and set the British record and won the race. So I was off by a second.
Yeah, but him taking it to the front, I thought Ingebrigtsen might try something different, and he did. But what did they say after the race? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, well, I was giving, I've said it 3 times now. I don't really want to repeat about all of the Jakob stuff, but his main takeaway is he's feeling pretty good about where he's at, given the training he missed. In terms of the race, how it played out, I asked Josh, I said, why'd you take off with 600 to go? And he was like, well, at the moment, I was thinking it would be a dumb thing to do. So that's why I decided to do it, because I thought if it was dumb, it was probably going to make a bunch of people uncomfortable. And that he feels like it worked exactly how it worked that way. Like it did make people uncomfortable, and it paid off and it won the race. But he said specifically before the race, Danny Mackey told him, do not go take the lead like that with 600 to go. He's like, yeah, I didn't really listen. I just kind of in the moment decided to do it. So I thought that was a really gutsy move, and he held it all the way. That was really impressive. And Jakob said, he tried to fight with him for the lead for a little bit, but he's like, this is a weird thing. Jakob said he kind of felt like it was a time trial. And then he caught himself and he's like, oh yeah, I know it's a race and we're going for the win, but I think he also kind of viewed it as a chance to assess just where his fitness is at this point in the season. So he was trying to downplay the loss, and Kerr wasn't trying to overhype the win. Kerr was kind of being like, look, I'm the world champion. I'm the best runner in the world. Like, this win shouldn't be viewed as that big a deal. And, he was like, when I was like, what were you thinking in the home straight holding off Jakob? Did it mean anything special to beat him? He's like, look, there are a lot of good guys in this field. I just wanted to beat all of them. So he wasn't trying to make it out to be anything bigger than, it's a big win for him. It's a Diamond League victory, his first ever. It's a British record, but he wasn't trying to say like, oh, I beat Jakob, I won this huge head-to-head.
Yeah. Did you see the comments from the Norwegian media?
No.
Jakob, I read it earlier in the show, but it was something like, I mean, it was a great quote. Something like, I'm glad he didn't wimp out and just, I could find it, like, skip the race.
Well, no,
that
was the other interesting thing, is he was kind of saying it's very interesting when people decide to show up to these things, and he's basically saying like he's always at these Diamond Leagues. Not everyone always shows up. And I kind of push back on him on that a little bit. Like, I agree Jakob races more than these top milers, but I'm like, Josh Kerr did run 2 Diamond Leagues before Worlds last year. He just finished a lot further back than he did today. And then Jakob was like, okay. And then he's like, but what about the last time we were here? And I'm like, well, you're right. He didn't run the Diamond League final last year. So I don't know but then he's kind of like, look, I wish everyone would show up to more of these things, but he also made the point that Other people have different ways of preparing. Jakob's a guy who values the regular season more than everyone else. He's made that pretty clear this weekend. Like, he's like, some people just care about the championships. I care about the championships, but I also care about this. I care about Monaco. I care about Oslo. So it's two different approaches. But yeah, he kind of suggested that, but I don't know. I mean, Josh Kerr doesn't usually run the Prefontaine Classic, so I do give him credit for showing up and fearlessly taking on this big field and getting the win.
Kerr ran a lot of 1500s last year on the circuit. Before last year, he really didn't do the Diamond League, but maybe he wasn't good enough to be doing the Diamond League, you know?
Well, he was an Olympic bronze medalist in 2021, but I think that one specifically, he only cared about the Olympics, and he was based in the U.S. He didn't want to. There was COVID, and he didn't want to go over to Europe and run these Diamond Leagues. He just wanted to stay stateside.
So,
other takeaways from that race, Yared Nuguse feels like this is the strongest he's ever been. He was like, look, top 3, it's a good result for me. It's a really good field. I mean, I think it's pretty solid. If you're like on the Yared Nuguse Olympic champion train, today wasn't a great sign. If you're on the Yared Nuguse Olympic medalist train, today was a pretty good sign, because this is an Olympic final quality field. He beat Neil Gourley had a hell of a run, but he beat Jake Wightman. I mean, that's a good result for him. So I think Nuguse was like pretty pleased. Neil Gourley, I knew he was good. I mean, he was the British champ last year, but he said he'd been injured over the offseason, and he said in March, he couldn't walk in March. His injury was so bad. He was just doing cross-training. Like, he said he was doing double threshold biking sessions and just hopping on Zwift and racing people on the exercise bike app. And really, he only got into like hard workouts a few weeks ago. So for him to turn around and run 3:47 in his opener and beat Wightman, I thought that was a great sign for him. So he was the surprise of the day for me in his first race since the World Championship final. And then Coubertier, not a good. I mean, Coubertier was kind of optimistic, but this was not. I don't see how you could view this as a good result for him. Dead last.
Optimistic.
Yeah, he was like, I'm going to get better between now and the trials, and you know, I was like, are you dispirited by it at all? Are you discouraged? And he said, no, I would be if I were him. I think he can make a 5K team, but he got absolutely bossed by Nuguse and Hawker. And I think Kessler would have beaten him as well had he not stepped off in the middle of the race.
What did you think about Kessler stopping out in the race? I haven't watched a replay, but a lot of people are like, dude, come on, you have the race to go.
I agree with that take. He had already gone through the mix zone by the time I got down there, but from what I understand, he spoke to, I think, Sarah Lodge Butler and a couple other people. It didn't seem like it was some injury that prevented him from running. I think that he just didn't react well in the moment. He said Hawker kind of cut in on him, and it threw him off, and he ended up, losing his balance a little, but not going down. But Robert, I had the same thought. I'm like, wait, he didn't even fold the track, and he's just stepping on the infield and giving up. And I think he acknowledged, like, it was not a good response. It was like one of those fight or flight moments, and he chose flight instead of fight.
Well, I just think it's like a gut reaction. You're like, oh, and then you wait you hesitate a second, and then it's too late.
You can't do that in the Olympic trials, man. Like, if something goes wrong in the middle of the Olympic trials final, you can't just step off the track. So I don't know. It was weird. It was very odd, but it doesn't seem like.
Well, I don't think he stepped off the track. I think he got tripped into the track and then just.
But he didn't come back in. Yeah,
but
it does not.
You can
does
get
not
hurt.
Sound like he has a long-term injury.
No, you can get hurt doing that, and you wouldn't want that before the trials. But
right.
maybe this makes the trials more interesting, because if Kessler runs 3:47 and Tier runs 3:53, you're like, okay, he's faster at 800. How is he going to lose this race? Yeah. So this gives the other guys, some hope. But I think that. Big picture wise, I said, I think if I'm in the top 4 or 5 in this race, I'm thrilled. Every guy top 5 should be happy with this race.
Oh yeah, Wightman was pleased, and I would be too. He was like, "Look, it's kind of similar to 2 years ago. I opened up in Oslo. I think it was Oslo. Maybe it was Rabat. No, I think it was Oslo. And he was behind, but 3:47 isn't bad. And I think Jake Wightman, he's trending in the right direction. Like, this isn't a bad race for him. If he can get better, he still has a really, really dangerous kick. So I think all the top guys should be pretty optimistic. This is what we wanted to see. The level has just gone up. Jakob has raised the bar in this event, and now we've got people exceeding it. So I think it was a great race by itself, but it also sets the stage for a fantastic season the rest of the year.
What's interesting here is, so we got to remember, folks, we're May 25th. Because last year in, it was Oslo, right? But the guys were running so fast last year. Oslo, Kerr goes there last year and he runs 3:30.07 and he finishes in 9th place, which is wild because 3:47.07 is like a 3:46.9 mile. Whereas today, there's only 3 guys breaking 3:47. So to go down to 9th, you got to go to 3:49. So I know it's 3 weeks earlier, but they were at the 1500. I think it's a little bit easier to run a fast 1500. But guys, last year were certainly a little bit ahead of where they are this year.
And should we talk about, we had a 17-year-old run 3:50 in the mile. It's just kind of an afterthought because this race was so loaded. But Cam Myers, that's pretty incredible for him to come over and run that, in this field.
I guess I should view this as a positive. I view him as like Niels Loros now. Like, he should be contending for medals. He's 17. So that's basically Webb, right? Webb was similar age, ran 3:53, Super Shooters 3 seconds. So, by the way, John, I got bad news. Niels Loros apparently is gone for the season. So
that's unfortunate, but he hadn't been racing. So I can't say I'm that surprised. Shall we move on? Do you want to talk world record? Should we talk women's 800? Do we want to talk about the women's 50? I talked about St. Pierre a little bit, Robert, because I was saying she was very happy. She's like 3:56. That's a good run for me. I was pleased with it. And she thinks she can kind of make more gains again into the low 350s shape. And I agree, like 3:56 objectively is fantastic. It's the second fastest time ever. Second fastest time by an American ever. The only other American who has run that fast is Shelby Houlihan, who's serving a doping ban. But at the same time, she runs 3:56 flat and only gets third in the race. So how did you view that one for her?
I used to say you can't complain if you PR. She PR'd by over 2 seconds as a pro. So I was hoping for more. But I said, like, look, on their best days, she shouldn't be touching these Ethiopian women. But I don't trust them. So I think Mark Hu can get the peak right. And the longer Kipyegon stays out, and what is the guy going to do? Is she going to actually try the 1500? Or
I asked the guy.
What did she say about that? Because it's really interesting to me. Because she's the defending world champion in the 10,000, right? Or no, in the
10,000. Yep.
Yeah, 10,000. She's the world record holder in the 5,000, but she gets beat today in the 10,000. If I'm her and Kipyegon's out and injured, I'm going straight to the 1,500. I'm working my double around that.
Try to run 350, and she could win that race. Yeah. I asked her. She said she would like to run 2 or 3 events at the Olympics, and then one of the other journalists asked her, "Could you rank them?" She didn't want to do that, but so all of them are in play for her.
Yeah, let's talk women's 800 because that's the one event I have not talked about at all.
Okay.
You weren't watching this on TV. I'm probably going to get fired today. I love Otto Bolden. Like, when he first started doing the broadcasting, I was like, finally we have somebody who's knowledgeable, doesn't talk down to us, and can, like, he knows more about the sprints than I do, and he's like elevating the broadcast. But for some dumb reason, they now have him and Shania Richards-Ross trying to analyze the 800. Like, that's not a sprint. You need a distance person analyzing that. They don't know what they're talking about. The rabbiting in this race was so bad. They go out in like 55-2, and Shania Richards-Ross, this is my rant. We're not going to have a podcast about Rojo complaining about the announcers. NBC hired me. I'll just do the 800. Like, Shania Richards-Ross is like, a great job by the rabbit. I'm like, are you kidding? Is this like a men's 800? Like 55-2? It was terrible. And there was 3 African women right on it. These, like, it blows my mind how stupid the 3 professional runners can run a race and go out and they go 55 and then over 60 on the next lap. Like, The rabbiting was terrible, the announcing was terrible, and the racing strategy for them were terrible. Keely Hutchinson wasn't even in the you couldn't even see her. She was so far back because she was running a smart race, and she ends up winning in 155.78. You know, her PB is 155.19. Crushes Mary Murrah by almost a full second, 156.71. Jimmy Reiki, 157. Nia Akins, I don't know where she was in the race because she was so far back, but she runs almost her PR, 157.98, so good for her. But I was just stunned by how, dumb the top three people ran in that first quarter.
Well, I mean, Mary Murrah, I've seen races where I thought she ran dumb and she still won them. So, I mean, 56.2, that's quick for her. I don't think it's insanely quick. For the other women, yeah, it's probably a bit silly. But
I just feel like in the 800, you really need to have a sense of pace. But in this day and age with pacing lights, if I'm I'm not paying the pacer. I'm like, if you're ahead of that purple line, you're not getting a check. How hard is it to figure out the right pace? Just look down and run the right pace. But yeah, I agree with you. I actually thought Mary Murrah, I'm like, oh, she's so talented. 600, I'm like, she's still going to win this race. She's going to go 55-30 and then run 28.9 and win it. But she didn't. But I just, a key part when I was coaching is you have to have a natural sense of pace. And it's important to teach runners to okay, let's do some cut down 200s. And they should be able to go 32, 30, 29, 28, on their own without a watch. And if you watch that FlowChat Chorus video, he's like, okay, I want to practice race pace, 27.5. Jakob runs the first 200, 27.53. I was just this guy's got a sick sense of pace. And Mary Murrah, her talent level is up here, but her race tactics, man, I don't know. She's a bigger talent, I think, than Keely Hutchinson. She's clearly faster at 400 with nothing Mo out. But I guess it's different at the Olympics because if you're Murrah, you might just sit on Keely and just blow her away. But kudos for Keely for running her own race because I was like, this is a woman that finishes second everywhere. Every global championship, she's second. And yet she lets herself get gapped on the first lap because she knew it was way too fast. And she crushed everybody.
It was very, very smart racing by her. And she kind of was like, look, I knew they went out really hard. And I was like, that's super fast. I'm just going to hang off of it. And I think it's progress from last year. Because remember in Lausanne, she got caught up trying to pass Mary Murrah. And she just clearly was not equipped to race Mary Murrah in that race. She wasn't comfortable. Murrah made her uncomfortable and she didn't respond well. This race, she ran more of her own race, backed off the pace, and put it together beautifully. And she's also someone who has had a lot of success running, closer to even splits or even negative splits sometimes in the 800. So I think she feels pretty comfortable doing that and doesn't mind coming from behind. But yeah, it's, it still takes some guts to get gapped in an 800 and let that open up. But she has a much better. She had a good sense of pace today, and I thought she ran really, really well. Would have loved to have seen what I think Mo would have done if she was in this race, but she wasn't. Dealing with an injury. Who knows how severe it is? It's severe enough that Bobby Kersey doesn't think she needs to run. So, yeah, can't wait to see them all run against each other, but we're probably going to have to wait until Paris for that one. And then I would say Nia Akins, good run for her. Sage Herdeklecker, I mean, improvement from last week, still a good run, but I think what this shows to me is you've got Mo, and then you've got Nia Akins on the U.S. scene. And then that third spot, I think Herdeklecker might be in the lead at the moment, but you've got Michaela Rose, who could be coming on strong, and then you've got Raven Rogers, who has been terrible this year, but always brings it in the trials. So I don't know. I mean, Sage Herdeklecker, if you're her, you've got to be thinking, all right, I'm in good shape. But if I'm evaluating that, I think there are more talented athletes who might be trying to come up on her and grab that spot at the trials.
I don't know why you have Sage Herdeklecker over Michaela Rose. Michaela Rose has run faster on her own, 158.37 than Klecker ran today.
Okay.
I think
honestly, you're probably right there, Robert.
And then the chat, they're asking, how do we have the team? And Seatown fan says, is that Seattle fan, I guess? Who's making the team? Mo, Rose, and Akins. I would be extremely shocked if Akins doesn't make the team. She's probably my number one pick right now to make the team because she's consistent, well coached, and in form. Moo's talent is out of this world. If she shows up, I think she's going to make the team. And then Michaela Rose's ceiling is clearly higher than Sage Hardy-Clarker's, but is it 3 rounds in the USA at the USA's, John?
Yep. Yep.
That doesn't help the sprint focused runner as much as the distance runner.
Well, my worry about Michaela Rose, she's a really great runner, and I think my worry is what happened last year. She was really good in the collegiate season. She was great at NCAAs, won that commandingly. USA's, it's not like she was awful, but she wasn't quite at that level. So I think it kind of helps, actually. Last year, USA's were a month after the NCAA championships, and this year there are like 2 weeks. But you look last year, she was 6th at USA's in 201 after running 159 to win NCAAs. So I think she'll probably carry over her form a little bit better than last year, but that'll be my one concern with her.
I think the shorter period, plus she's learning. She's only 20. So, but it's kind of crazy, right? We're talking about that team. We're not even mentioning. I think Audrey Wilson has almost no shot.
I've written her off. I'm afraid. Like, she had a great run, but the way she's not like Raven Rogers, who can run awful and then really peak it right. Like, Aja is usually pretty consistent when she's had her best years, and she's just been consistently not that good at the moment.
All right. Let's talk about the next to last event of the day.
Oh, the women's 100.
I'm not back. I'm better.
All right. Try to push the button. It's not working.
Oh, I heard it. We all heard it, Robert. It worked great.
You heard it right now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
sorry for the technical difficulties. I had everything set up. John gets mad when everything's set up. I had everything set up, but then the doorbell rang. And for some reason, I decided to go to see who was at the door. I thought it might be like an intruder or something. And then my
do you think an intruder would ring the doorbell?
And then my Bluetooth disconnected, and then that messed everything up, so I couldn't hear you. And then I tried to get the wired things. But
yeah, I said this earlier, Robert. Look, this was the win that Sha'Carri. I think this is an important race, because I was going to be looking at this. If she shows up and runs poorly here, you really hit the panic button, because those first 2 races in China weren't good. And then if she gets beat, in the US on a pretty fast track, then you start wondering, in her best event in the 100, then you start worrying. And I don't think there's any reason to worry anymore. She showed up, she beat a good field. All right, there's no Fraser Price, but that's not. Elaine Thompson-Herah was awful and not a good sign for her. But Sha'Carri, not an amazing start, but then the start's not the best part of her race. She only needs to have an okay start because her middle is so strong. And when she took the lead, she just took over, slammed the door. Like, that was a great run for Sha'Carri. And I'm putting her on the Olympic team right now. And the question is, can she get that gold medal?
And what was the time?
10:83, which I think they probably got a friendly wind there. I'm guessing it was plus 1.5, but the weather was not great for sprinting. It was in the low 60s. So that's a pretty good time for May.
Well, no one else in the world. I mean, Jacia Sears is now injured, right?
Yeah.
She's run 10:77, the collegian. Aaliyah Hobbs has run 10:88. It's just like the men's sprinting. It's just not impressive. No one's under 10:9. Whereas last year, we haven't seen Shelly Ann Fraser-Price. Last year, you got 1, 2, 3, 4 women under 10:8, but they're getting older. Sherika Jackson, Sha'Carri, Mary Tallow, and Shelly Ann Fraser-Price. 5 women. Elaine Thompson-Herah. And Elaine Thompson-Herah was terrible. She was in last. It was interesting, John. I wasn't expecting much from her, like just coming into the race. I mean, this woman's won what? Double? Is it double gold?
Yep. At the
100, 200 at the last 2 Olympics. But I'm like, she hasn't raced all year. Like, I'm not expecting much. Otto Bolden had the other take. He's like, I was on the plane with her. I feel like she's got to be in great shape. Why would she open up against such a stacked field unless she was in good shape? Well, you get paid because she's not a Nike athlete. If you're a Nike athlete, you have to show up. She's not Nike. She's Puma. She shows up and she was terrible. 11:30, and I just thought to myself, man, how much money is this woman going to lose? Well, I guess she's already got her deals, but she should have paid that coach whatever he wanted to be paid. In case you don't know, she had one coach. She quit.
It was a she, I think.
What?
I think the coach she split with was a she. Was it Shaniki Thompson?
Well, good for her. She had a coach, but she was a Nike coach, so she switched to Puma. She had to switch coaches. Her husband was coaching her, wasn't doing any well. Switches to a new coach, does amazing. This coach wants to get paid. Well, she didn't want to pay her, and now she's last in the pre-classic. Panic time for her.
Shaniki Osborne. I apologize. That's her name.
But to me, this is, you're seeing it like in women. It's not like this in men's running. In women's running, the gap between like the top 2 or 3 superstars and everybody else is massive, massive. So if Faith Kipyegon, Shelly Ann Fraser-Price, Elaine Thompson-Herah, I'm missing some other names. If these women are all out, it totally opens the game up for a lot of other people. Like, yeah. But I think Sha'Carri, like, she wins doubly today. One, she's running well, and it looks like she's going to be in that 10-6, 10-7 range. No one else is showing that. No one else in the world is showing that.
Yeah, no,
John,
absolutely.
Now, in case our podcast listeners or Supporters Club members can't see you, John is doing the podcast from is that the upper deck of Hayward Field?
Yep.
What was the crowd like? I was just watching the races off and on.
The crowd was good. For the 10,000s in the morning, it was only about a third full, maybe half full, but I wouldn't say that. But the people who were here made a lot of noise. They were giving a standing ovation for the last lap of the world record. And then for the meet itself, they had a couple sections on the what used to be called the Bowerman curve. I guess you can still call that. Those sections were just blocked off completely, but that's only a couple hundred seats. Everything else, it was pretty good turnout. I would say it was like 80% full. Like it was pretty good. It was not. There were empty seats, but it was a pretty good crowd. I wasn't like disappointed by it. The other thing, Robert, I kind of wondered for a while, does Sha'Carri Richardson have something against me in particular or against just all written media? And I mean, the answer might be both, but she especially doesn't want to talk to me because I did ask her as she was going through the mix zone if she had time to do an interview. And she said, she pointed right at me, said, "Not for you," and then walked down a few more steps and did stop and gave 30 seconds to everyone else. But 30 seconds isn't very much compared to.
Wow. There you have it, folks. Sha'Carri Richardson confirming her own professionalism. I saw someone, John, by the way, folks, in case y'all haven't been on Let'sRun.com, this show is part of Let'sRun.com, media juggernaut. Go to Let'sRun.com each and every day. But this is Jonathan Gault's 10th year anniversary. The first meet he ever covered for Let's Run was the pre-classic 10 years ago. He wrote a great article about, going to that meet. We started a message board thread about, "Thank you, John. We are very happy to have you here." And, most of the people were very happy, writing nice comments about you. And there was one comment, I think it might have been deleted by volunteer moderators, but it was like, "Yeah, John," or maybe it was on Twitter, I don't know. John made that racist comment about Sha'Carri or some rude comment about Sha'Carri. And in case y'all don't know what we're talking about, I think he was at the New York Grand Prix. Sha'Carri Richardson wore I shouldn't say fishnet. She wore stockings that looked like a fishnet on her legs, and John made some joke about fishnet stockings.
And her arms. So I made a joke saying it looked like she just got fished out of the East River because the race was taking place in New York, like in the East River on Randall's Island. And, if that's what she's mad about, then I'll apologize. I'm sorry. I thought there was certainly nothing racial intended there. It was just she was wearing fishnets in a race that was happening on an island. So I found that kind of amusing. I'm happy to apologize if she took offense. I didn't mean offense. I was sort of poking a little fun, maybe harmless fun. If that's what she's mad about, I'm sorry. Otherwise, I don't know because I really haven't.
No, that's it. No? That's it. But I wanted to respond to this person and be like, She literally wore fishnet stockings and he made a fish joke. Like, what's wrong with that? And particularly in New York, because I mean, one of my top 10 all-time track and field memories is at the Ivy League championships at Columbia University. My brother's junior year, because this would have been like 95 or 94, I don't know. There was a dead body in the river behind the stadium. It was New York City, back when crime was kind of high, and there was a dead body. Everyone ran out of the stadium. This is before the internet and Twitter and stuff. Everyone heard about it, and everyone ran out of the stadium to see a dead body, like in the river. So, I don't know. I'm glad. Actually, I love that, John. She doesn't want to. Have you ever had any bad interaction with her besides the tweet?
No, I don't really understand what other, and even I don't even know if she saw that tweet. So I'm confused because Robert, she picks and chooses who she wants to talk to, because when she came through the mix zone at the start, there was one woman, like she started a conversation with one journalist, and then a bunch of other people tried to crowd around, as it usually happens in these mix zones, and she called them all off, and she said, no, I'm talking to this person only. And we all sort of waited, and they finished the interaction, and then she walked through, and I asked her, and she declined, and then she stopped for about 30 seconds to talk to the huge scrum. So she did stop to talk to media, just not for very long.
Now, do they have the special social media aspects where the people can do?
Yeah, they had that. They had like the creator lounge, the content lounge next door. I don't know if she was in there or not by then.
Is that before or after you?
It's after the mix on.
Okay. John, Chip Time Gun Time on YouTube. This is free dating advice for you, John. You insulted a woman's clothing and wonder why she doesn't want to speak to you. That's true. It's very hard as America. Honey, how did I look? Do you want the truth, or do you want me to say, amazing, honey, amazing?
I mean, again, Robert, I've said, if she took offense to that, I'm sorry. And I'm willing to put that behind me. But I don't even, honestly, I don't know. If it's not that, I don't know what's going on, and we don't need to sort of dwell on that. All right, shall we talk about the world record? Have we discussed that at all, Robert? A woman broke 29 for the first time on the track?
On the track is the question for you. I mean, Beatrice Chibet was amazing, right?
Yeah,
now,
I mean, well, here's the thing. I look at it, I'm like, she ran amazing, but also I thought this record would be broken. I thought Sagai would be the one to do it. And then we hear Sagai, she actually might not be going for the world record. And she said, yes, this week I had some pain in my foot and I wasn't going to go for it. But then I did my warm up yesterday and I felt good. So I decided the record was on again. But Beatrice Chibet, obviously you need the talent and the hard work to run 28:54. But everything else was set up almost perfectly. You had good weather. It was in the 50s. There wasn't any wind. You had the pace lights, and you had the 10,000-meter world champion essentially rabbiting you until 3 laps to go, because she just stuck on Gudov Sagai, and then the second Sagai wasn't on the pace lights anymore, Chibet took over and hammered it home. So fantastic run for her, but it was also like she was given these great conditions, basically a perfect setup, and took full advantage.
That's exactly what I said. It reminded me of the Galen Rupp American record. It's hard to get a rabbit for that long.
Yeah.
So I was trying to figure out. So Chibet wins. I mean, she's 2-time world cross country champion, right?
Yep.
I guess her track PBs coming in were, God.
14:05. I mean, this was the interesting thing. It was kind of the reverse of the Diamond League final last year. Sagai gets the world record. Chibet is second in one of the fastest times ever. This time, it's Sagai is second in one of the fastest times ever. I mean, Robert, do you realize 4 of the top 7 all-time performers ran their PBs in this race today?
No.
Yeah, number 1, Chibet. Number 3, Sagai, I think, is 4th, and then the other 2 are in the top 7. The other women. So, yeah, it was very, very fast day.
But I was wondering, like, okay, what happened to these road women? Remember, Agnes Ingebrigtsen ran 28:46 in Valencia on January 14th. Emmanuel and Yangi ran 28:57. Lilian Ringerick ran 29:32. So Ringerick, the third person in Valencia, ends up second Ethiopian here. She gets a spot. Ingebrigtsen is a DNS. And and Nyong'o, who has gone from running. Like, how is this possible? How do you go from running 28:57 on the roads to only running 30:06 today for sixth place? Like, has that record been validated? It seems. I guess the men didn't run super fast that day. Because once there's some stud men in that race.
Kip Limo was in that race.
No.
He didn't break a world record.
That's what I'm saying. It's not like we think the course was a minute short or something. Those times.
I think. Well, it's possible. I mean, it could be possible. And Nyong'o is injured. I mean, she ran what? She ran 30:06 today. That's obviously it's nothing. It's not close to her world record, but she might not be in. That was in January. That was 4 months ago. So maybe she's had an injury in between because she wasn't all that great at World Cross. And then Agnes Ngedic she was in Eugene and was a DNS, and I asked her agent and I said, why didn't she run? And he just said precautionary DNS, more details with Athletics Kenya. So I don't know exactly why. It sounded like maybe there might have been an injury, but and Nyong'o, I'm really trying to understand where that performance came from, because there was very little before she did that to indicate she was in sub 29 shape, and she hasn't done very much after that to also indicate it.
Some are speculating on the message board that Sha'Carri didn't speak to you because you don't know much about the sprints. John knows more about the sprints than the average person asking questions in the mix zone. Trust me on that one. So, we'll put up the unprofessional comments. What do we? I guess I'm looking here at other events that we haven't really talked about. Kenny Bednarek won the 200. Joe Kovacs was amazing in the shot put. He shot 23-13, just off his PB of 23-23. But Grant Holloway in the hurdles, 13:03. I think it's a world leader. Daniel Roberts, 13:13. I meant to bet on this because it was basically not that much more than even money. Like Daniel Roberts and him are kind of close to each other in betting odds. I'm like, he always beats Daniel Roberts. But
that was an insult, honestly, Robert. He was like minus 120 before the race. I couldn't believe for Grant Holloway in the Diamond League, given he just ran 13:07 last week in Atlanta. I was like, that's an absolute insult. I
should have bet like $200 or $300. Should have told Chris Lear to bet $200 or $300. He's just a gambling junkie. But I didn't bet anything. But it was kind of like his normal race. The first 60, I would say even farther than this race, 80 were perfect. And then he just slows down. He's like, I guess I'm sort of work on keep my momentum going. If he doesn't win this Olympic gold, it's a big, big hole in his resume. And he just cannot get those last 20, 30 meters right. They're gaining on him, John.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is how he runs. Some guys have a great start, and some guys have a great finish. And Grant has a great start. Probably one of the best starts ever at the hurdles. And the question is, just can he hold on? He's going to create a gap, and can he hold on well enough? And I know he knows this about his race, and I'm sure Mike Holloway, who's a fantastic race, is well aware. But some people just have strengths and weaknesses, and you try to address those weaknesses, but he's always going to be a better starter than he is a finisher.
Well, if he doesn't win Olympic gold, he does need to change coaches. Come to me, because I know the guy that's told me. He's told me very specifically. This guy's got some sprint expertise. Very specifically, what things to do in practice to have Grant finish better. He said he did it with a hurdle. I know a hurdler back in the day, John. So I think I told you this story. You know what I'm talking about, John. Admit it's not a crazy idea, right, John?
It's an absolutely crazy idea. He's won 3 straight world titles. He's the greatest 60-meter hurdler of all time. And because he got silver in one Olympics, and we don't even know what he's doing.
No, if he gets another silver, he needs to change things up.
No, he doesn't. He's won
he does.
2 straight world titles. He's run the second fastest time in the history of the hurdles. It doesn't mean. So you're saying he could. The fact that he's won 3 world titles, you don't give him any credit for that. It's like there's something specific about the Olympics that a new coach will solve. This is just a ridiculous theory.
If he loses the Olympics, I would change coaches without a doubt. I wouldn't even hesitate. If I was his agent, I would advise him to change coaches. I'm like, dude, you've peaked out here. You're consistently a 12.95 to 13.05 guy, but you've come up short several in the 2 biggest races of the last 3 years, both games. And now if he wins, totally different ball game.
Okay. You're insane. All right. do we talk men's 10,000? I mean, Robert, where do you stand on Grant Fisher? Did his odds go up because the guy who got silver in the last World Championship final, Daniel Abeno, fell with 2K to go and did not make the Kenyan team? Well, I guess he didn't get one of those auto spots. He might still get the discretionary spot here, but what do you make of that result? And is it good for Grant Fisher if he's not on the team?
It's great for Grant Fisher if he's not on the team. And I said earlier that he shouldn't be on the team. I didn't know about the poll. So, wow. Let me pull these up again.
Because the interesting thing here is Daniel Matejko, the guy who won this, he wasn't known as a kicker before this. You know, he was running the Chicago Marathon and trying to hang with Kelvin Kiptum last fall. He ran London this spring. Like, he'd been doing marathon training. Now he steps down in a 10K, and you know, it wasn't totally tactical because it was 26:50, but there were 4 guys battling out for the win. I mean, this was a fantastic last lap. So I look at that and I'm thinking, I don't know. The big weakness for Grant Fisher is these other guys outkick him, and I just don't view Matejko as like a huge kicker. You know, again, he did win this race in a kick, but I feel like it is probably good news for Fisher that this is the guy who made the team.
But if I'm Kenya, I'm not sure what to do about the third pick. But I just, he's not a great track guy. But Kenya's none of these guys have crazy PRs, John. They've historically just put random guys get second every year. You know what I'm saying? So what's interesting to me here is I thought, let's analyze this from the perspective of the winning time. You had pace lights. 26:50 is very similar to what Grant Fisher ran at the 10. The 10 he runs 26:52. I would say the conditions are harder today, right? Because it's daytime. Final lap here, 56:73. Final lap for Grant Fisher at the 10. Are you ready? Guess what it was?
I thought it was faster. Didn't he close in like a 54 or 55?
56:78.
Oh, it was the same. Oh, okay.
Almost the same, but that was a little. I think it's. So that's early in the season. Pretty similar. Yeah, I agree. This is not a track guy, but John, we were raving this guy's talent. The guy that wins. Second, if I'm Kenny on the third spot, since Abeno fell, I think I put him on the team. He got silver last year, John.
Yeah, but Kenya. The last 2 years. The chances are one of these guys, they're going to have a pretty strong team. The chances one of these guys is going to pop off and get a medal. That's what's happened with Stanley and Buru in 2022. It's what happened with Abeno last year. And I think going in, you wouldn't have said like either of those guys, oh, they're clearly the best Kenyan. They're definitely going to get a medal. It's just you put 3 strong guys in the final. One of them is going to be in shape, ready to do something. So I'd expect whoever they pick for that third spot, whether it's Bernard Quebec, who got third today, or whether it is Abeno, I think it's probably between those two, honestly. Whoever's on the team, at least one of them is going to be a serious medal threat.
But Quebec was not the cross-country medalist, right? I got confused early in the show. I thought
no, that was Benson Kiplangat, and there was worries about him getting a visa because, all right, Benson Kiplangat did run the race. He was 5th and 26:55. I mean, not a terrible race. He just was a little back from the top 4. He got a visa and ran the race. Samuel Chebole, he's a guy who'd been running pretty well this year as well. And he didn't even start. He was a DNF. So I really don't know what was up with him. But he was a guy I thought could make the team. He just didn't have the standard. He ended up not even finishing the race. And Robert, I'm going to give you a heads up here. My battery is at about 17%. We're going to have to wrap this up in the next 2 or 3 minutes because otherwise I don't have an outlet around here. I'm going to have to leave.
Well, we've been talking for too long anyways.
Yeah.
Amazing show. My small technical difficulties now.
I mean, I'm just impressed that you handled this thing solo for like 40 minutes. Honestly, it's kind of crazy how long it took the Bowerman Mile guys to come through, but they were signing autographs. Like normally they'll come through a lot quicker in a Diamond League. And this time around, I think there was just a lot of demand. There was a lot of excitement about that race.
It was a lot of excitement. Both Jakob did a victory lap. I saw him running around giving people high fives. So I thought that was cool. And my favorite moment of the day, John, tell me if I'm wrong because I was watching on TV. Sha'Carri leads 8,800 meters It's supposed to be her world record. She does all the work. She loses. And she gave a big hug to Beatrice Chibet.
I know, respect. She said afterwards, she's like, congratulations. She ran a great run. It's a great time. She was happy for us. So that was very classy from Sagai.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
John, don't do anything I wouldn't do here.
Well, I think that's pretty safe. I think I make better decisions sometimes than you do, but I'm excited. There are some supporters club members in town who sound like they wanted to get a beer later, so we'll see if that ends up happening. But I got to write for a couple hours because I got to weigh in on this Bowerman Mile, which I thought was an excellent race. So I'm going to get to work. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We appreciate your support. If you're listening as a supporters club member on demand, thank you again for your support, and can't wait to get back and talk more track next week.
I just got a message. Does WhatsApp show from Cathal Dennehy, top Irish journalist? Thanks for the show, John. I like to be accurate. It's journalism accuracy is paramount for Let'sRun.com. Me in particular. I said don't do anything I wouldn't do. That's not true because I'm a married man and I can't be with unmarried women. So
okay, time to cut off Rojo.
Yes, but don't do anything I wouldn't do as a single man. Is what I meant, John.
Okay, well, yeah, I think it's a pretty high bar that I would have to exceed there. So
yes, I'm a Southern gentleman, John. Southern gentleman.
Okay, all right. Until next time, thanks everyone for tuning in.
Check out the written recaps. We'll have them up shortly. The interns have been banging them out, I heard, John. I hope they've been doing a good job.
Good to hear. All right.